This video is going to teach my students how to create a lower thirds from a template I've made using Adobe After Effects and Adobe Premiere. So Adobe Premiere is where editing takes place, but Adobe After Effects is where the template lives. So the template's provided for you. You'll be able to download it from Classroom or from Bulb to use, and we're going to be using this in Adobe Premiere. Now it's worth pointing out at this point that your lower thirds demo, or excuse me, your lower thirds template should be a After Effects document, and it should be in the same folder where you'll be editing. So it's okay to make multiple copies of this, but each one of these should be matched to the video project you're working on in Adobe Premiere. So right now there's no Adobe Premiere project in here, so I haven't made it yet. So I'm going to click New Project, and once I've got this open, I'm going to change the folder location. You have to pick the folder location, otherwise it will go somewhere place you did not pick. So here's my, gosh, where is it? It's the lower thirds demo. So there it is. And now you don't see the other file in there, which is the After Effects, because right now it's looking for Adobe Premiere project documents. So I'm going to select this folder. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to say lower thirds demo. And you, of course, should be giving it the name of the project you're working on, the news piece, the film, whatever you're doing. Probably news. So lower thirds demo. And now I'm going to click Create. Now you could select Media to create a new project here, and my personal preference is not to do that, and so I'm going to teach the way I do it. So I'm going to set this Create button. It's actually creating it. It's just not doing anything right now. There it is. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to find my footage, and I'm just going to grab this piece here and drop it in. And this is an example. So you may be having other interviews to work with, and I've drag and dropped it in there, and now I have that in my project. Now notice at this point I have no sequences. So I have to make the sequence, and I'm going to drag and drop this over here in place, and there's my interview. Now I might want to edit this down, etc., etc. This is about a half a minute long. Just for the sake of argument, let's make this about 15 seconds long. And of course, you would be cutting this into pieces and adding B-roll, etc., etc., to make it the way you want it to be. Right now, we're going to make the lower thirds out of this. Now, there are a couple of ways of getting the job done with this. Let's go straight over here to Adobe After Effects. And it says here, Control-T to duplicate in project and edit text at 2 seconds. So before I do anything, I'm going to go ahead and close that. And there's a few other pieces to build this up. So I've got a few compositions and graphics that make this work. And what I'm going to be doing here is taking the template duplicate to use and duplicating it. So Control-D duplicates it. So I'm going to take my second copy, and it's not a bad idea to rename this, comp settings, and I'm going to change the name. I'm going to say construction project, and I'm going to change this to project manager, or just project manager. Since each composition is going to have its different lower thirds in there, I've got that. So here's this, and I'm going to take out, let's see, it says go to 2 seconds. So before I get too busy, I'm going to go to my 2 seconds. I'm going to change the text and put the name there. And there's a line 2, so I went to line 1 for this. Go to line 2, double click, and double check my spelling. Get an extra T in there. Always double check your spelling. There we go. Okay, now as you can see, that's not quite all visible. So I'm going to go ahead and select this. If I push P for position and drag that left, it looks like I may have misspelled this still. There we go. So that looks correcter now. A little more left. And it looks like the box itself, the text box, may be too small. So let me try to drag this out to make it longer. There we go. So that looks much better. So I can see the whole text. I've got the person's name in there. You can move the name around if you want to. So P for position. But it's important that these all be sort of consistent and regular. So when I roll this into place, it's going to do this. And all that animation is in place already. You don't have to do anything to make that happen. What it does at the end is it fades out. So all these are connected, and what's happening here is that there's one piece, which is the base geometry, and that's where all the action is happening, and everything is parented to that piece. So the base geometry is all parented. So whatever it does, they do as well, including movement, opacity changes, etc. So this thing looks great, very professional. It's got our school logo on it, and then it fades out at the end. So looking good. And what we still need to do is take out the part where it says Control-D to duplicate. So find that where it says, I named the layer delete this, and now that's gone, and now this works. Now, there are a couple ways of getting this into my project. The easiest way, and this is now a linked project, so if I change one, it changes the other. So I'm going to go here to Premiere. I'm going to File. I'm going to find Import. There it is. And I'm going to go to the folder where my work is. So sometimes you have to go to the folder where you think your stuff is, and I'm going to go to Passport. It's a lower thirds demo. Here it is. And I'm going to be importing the After Effects file. And it wants to know which one. So I've got a few of these, and one that says Project Manager. And click OK. So now I've got that in there. I can drag this into place. Oops, I goofed. I went over my other file. So now this is going to roll in. That's actually not the video I thought I was using. There it is. I know it's wrong. I have left the video in place that was originally in this. So I can take this out and delete that. That's kind of important to do. So when I go back to Premiere, because it's a linked file, that's now permanently in place, and that works great. Now, just as a little side, there's this guy in the background who's kind of distracting at that point. You can actually take this clip, sort of a separate issue, and choose Controls and scale this up. And now he's gone. You could also work with your position to change left and right to set this up. And now that looks great. So now we've got the lower thirds in place, which fades after 8 seconds. So let's just run through another example of this. So I've got one in there. And what I want to do is, let's go back to, let's add in a separate piece in here. So I'm going to go find another video to work with. And I'm going to grab this guy, who's the guy in the background, and drag that into place. I can double click to pre-edit this. So he introduces himself, he talks about what he does. Click this. Now I've got 24 seconds, 17. There we go. Dragging that into place. So now we're doing some more editing. I've got a new shot, new person into place. And B-roll would be great since we have the same location. But what we've done is change the size of things so it kind of works out better. And now we're going to go back to After Effects. And now because we already did the Project Manager one that works well, you could duplicate that one or duplicate the original, but you have to have the original in place somehow to work from. So I'm going to push Control-D, and I can't remember this guy's job, so I'm just going to open this up. And this one is the same exact as Michelle Smith, but I'm going to use Project Manager 2. Right-click it, rename it, and let's call this guy the Equipment Manager. And so now that changes the tab here. I'm going to now change the name. So I have to go to 2 seconds to change the content because that's when it stops moving. So go here, double click on the name, and make him name Jimmy Olsen. And I'll take the Project Manager now and Control-A to select all. And I'm now going to say he is the And as you can see, I also made this one a little bit too deep into the mask that hides this. So I'm adjusting my mask to fit this. And there you have it. Now I did notice something with the other one, okay? I went back to Project Manager. I noticed I put 2 J's or something in Project Manager. And if I go back to Premiere, it's going to show up there. So I go back to here. It's going to show up in a second, I promise. And there it says Project Manager twice. So I'm going to go fix it in After Effects, double click, take one of the extra letters out, and without even pushing Control-S to save, I come back here and it fixes itself. So coming back here to the Equipment Manager, Jimmy Olsen, we now need to bring him into place. So coming back to the Premiere project, this is Premiere project here. I'm going to again right click, import, Takes me right back to where I was before. Here's lower third setup, AEP. You could rename it to match the project. Now we're going to get the project manager, equipment manager. Here we go. Now that's where it's valuable to name your compositions effectively. So it imports, drag this into place, put it where it goes, and now quick and easy, you've got matching lower thirds. Now everybody's got to use these because this is going to match our channel's sort of branding. So that's part of our branding, is that they all look the same. So rather than each student making their own using the where is it, the essential graphics tab, here we go. So instead of using it from here and go through all the work, this is already ready to go. All you have to do is change the text and import the work. So it's always the same every time. Thanks.